Ben, come on, we're late.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Hold on. I'm texting somebody.
Oh, there we go.
Hold on. Yeah. I want pizza for dinner.
If you're texting to get pizza right before the show, we need to have a meeting, sir. You're getting a little too chill up in that basement or attic, wherever the hell you are.
Pizza counts, okay? Dude, you know it's snowing outside?
Yes, it is. It is a snowy Friday afternoon.
A snowy night in Georgia. Snowy night in Georgia.
Oh, you lucky listeners. 2 songs of the day right off the top. All right, your Ben Joravsky show for Friday, January 8th is moments away. But before we do this, let's thank our sponsors. Hey, how about this? Here, this is new. SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana. They are sponsors of the program. I don't have any script or anything like that, but they are sponsors, and script soon to come, all right? Shout out to SEIU. Oh, and Ben, you got that mute button down, buddy. That's good. You guys heard that brown line, but now it's gone because Ben hit that mute button. Way to be, buddy. Way to be, buddy boy.
I'm just Mr. Tech.
Well, let's not go that far.
We're late. Just want to let everybody know the reason we're late is that Dennis, the guy is really nice. He really proved his millennial self today. He led me through the settings of my computer, which it was like a millennial leading a boomer. Come on now. Come on, Grandpa. It's not so bad. I'm scared.
We're getting there. Today, Ben figured out how to turn the volume up and down on his headphones. Next up, that microphone he's got. We will get there.
Oh, what a show. It's just the two of us, ladies and gentlemen, just me and the day.
But hey, SEIU, hey, this is awesome stuff, all right? Thank you for sponsoring. You won't regret it, all right? Thank you. Also, the Chicago Reader. Check out chicagoreader.com. Ben writes a column every week there.
Yes, I do.
I'm sure a lot of you knew that, but it's every week. Go check it out, chicagoreader.com, for all things to know in the city of Chicago. Thank you to Chicago Reader for hosting the Ben Joravsky Show. And today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. It is Friday. It is snowing. Your song of the day has nothing to do with snow. It comes from Frank. A little bit country, a little bit rock and roll by Donnie and Marie Osmond.
The name of the song is a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll.
You know, I'm a little bit country. I'm a little bit rock and roll. You know,
why don't you sing it? You do it better than I do.
It's called the Ben Joravsky Show, my friend.
Wait, hold on. Train going by. I don't know that song, so I'll just sing a different song by the Osmonds. One bad apple toast for the whole bunch. Girl, come on, D. Oh, give me one more chance. Woo, yeah.
Ew. Ew. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Friday, January 8th, and live from my apartment and his attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Ben, what are you doing? Today on the program, it's another Rummana Rundown with Chicago Sun-Times editor, Rummana Husain. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Crybaby Hawley Friday, and here's why. Republicans followed up Wednesday's insurrection by doing what they do best, crying like the little babies that they are. Wah, wah, wah. Just to remind you, Wednesday's insurrection was when the howling mob of mega men and women fired up by Donald Trump's speech stormed the Capitol, surged past the police, broke the doors, smashed windows, wandered through the Senate hall, took over Nancy Pelosi's office, sat in her chair, put their feet on her desk, chased a cop down a hallway, carried Confederate flags through the Capitol, replaced the American flag with a Trump flag, and put their mega cap on Gerald Ford's head. That's just a small recitation of what they did on Wednesday, disgracing the country and their movement and themselves. And then, in the aftermath, the leaders of the Republican Party, many of them, spent about, 5 minutes pretending they really felt bad about what went down, even though they'd spent the last 5 years enabling it. And then, after that 5 minutes of reflection, They did what they do best, try to figure out how they can make themselves the victims. Like, oh, those mean liberals are picking on us again. I'll tell you what, there is no group of people in the world who can either storm the White House or incite other people to storm the White House and then walk away without getting thrown into jail and wind up feeling sorry for themselves. We're going to hear much more about this from Rummana Husain today, I can tell you that. Anyway, back to one of the chief instigators, Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri. I know you listeners know this. He was the one who seconded the motion to challenge the official certification of Joe Biden as the winner of the election, particularly in the state of Pennsylvania. He did so on the grounds of some made-up BS that was fantasized by Donald Trump or Rudy Giuliani, and it had no relationship to reality whatsoever. And he did so primarily because he's an exceedingly ambitious young man, and he's figured the best way to get ahead in the world, to maybe become president someday, is to seize the allegiance of MAGA right now. As I always tell you, folks, MAGA controls the Republican Party and Trump controls MAGA. But Trump won't be around forever. And so Josh Hawley has to put himself at the head of the line to win over MAGA when Trump is gone. So he's like a little kid, in the Donald Trump's classroom, the little goody polishing the apple for teacher Donnie, jumping up and down, pick on me, I got my hand in the air. Yeah, he's a real tough guy. Before the meeting, before the Senate gathered to discuss certifying the election, Hawley's the one who raised his fist in solidarity to the protesters, the insurrectionists who were gathering at the Capitol. And then after the insurrectionists did their insurrection and made the Republican Party look bad, he got all sober and somber that night and just, pretended like he had done some deep soul searching. And like it really pained him that the people he was egging on actually did what he was egging them on to do. What a phony. By the way, can't I just say something to you? I finally got around to listening to Donald Trump's speech. Took me a while, I was preoccupied with a lot of, but last night I took a deep dive, a little embarrassed of this. I was up for like an hour listening to Trump's speech, listening to the baby Donnie Trump Jr. speech, watching some of the footage of the insurrectionists, this, that, and the other thing. Here's the thing about Donnie Trump. He was like, I'm going to march with you to the Capitol. He said it, he was going to march with them, and then he didn't go. He just stayed back at the White House and watched the whole thing on the boob tube. Just one more broken promise, MAGA. Anyway, back to Josh Hawley. Had a book deal with Simon & Schuster to write his memoir. I believe the title of the book deal is I'm a Douchebag and Here's Why. Just kidding. That's not the real title of the book, but I'm sure that's...
I was just Googling it.
I'm sure that's just sort of the, kind of sums it all up. Anyway, he was going to write a book about how big tech is so mean. Big tech is so mean because what? Twitter enabled Donald Trump to become president of the United States. That's why they're so mean. That's how the Republicans use big tech to get what they want. Then they cry that big tech is mean to them. So big tech bent over backward to accommodate the Republicans, and then the Republicans still cry about big tech. I gotta admit, the Republicans are pretty good at playing this game. Anyways, in the aftermath of Wednesday's insurrection, Simon & Schuster pulled the plug. They wrote, quote, "We do not come to this decision lightly. As a publisher, it will always be our mission to amplify a variety of voices and viewpoints, even if they're batshit crazy." They didn't really say that. At the same time, we take seriously our larger public responsibility as citizens and cannot support Senator Hawley after his role in what became a dangerous threat, end quote. And in the aftermath of having Simon & Schuster pull the plug on their deal, Hawley did what MAGA does best, cried like a baby. And here's his quote: "This could not be more Orwellian. Simon & Schuster is canceling my contract because I was representing my constituents, leading a debate on the Senate floor on voter integrity, which they have now decided to redefine as sedition." No, they're canceling your contract because you were helping to incite the sedition. And maybe they were just canceling their contract because they just think it's not a good idea to line themselves with wingnuts like you. How about that? And they have the right to do that. I'm sure there's language in the contract that protects them. Their rights, they got rights too, that protects them. Like if you do something really stupid that embarrasses them, they cut the cord. Like if they had a contract with somebody to do advertising for them and that person got arrested for drunk driving, they would cut the cord. Now, that was just an example I threw out. What's worse, drunk driving or leading an insurrection at the Capitol? Got to think about that. Either way, Simon & Schuster is perfectly within their rights to sever that contract. By the way, Hawley goes, "We'll see you in court." And then in the other statement, Simon & Schuster said it was confident it was acting within its contractual rights. What a baby. He's going to file a lawsuit because his feelings got hurt. You know, I didn't hear Josh Hawley standing up for the First Amendment when Colin Kaepernick got blacklisted from the NFL. But you know MAGA's rule, First Amendment for me, but not for thee. Look, Hawley, you have a First Amendment protected right to spin stupid fantasies about stolen elections and stupid stuff on the floor of the Senate. And Simon & Schuster has a First Amendment right to say, beat it, pal. We got a great show today, everybody. Rummana Husain from the Chicago Sun-Times, editor, columnist. She is fired up, D. I called her about an hour before the show just to run down what we're going to talk about. And she just took off in a riff. I'm like, slow down, Rummana. Save it for the show. Save it for the show. Anyway, she'll be talking about what went down Wednesday and double standards and just the horror of it all. And that will do Rummana recommendations, all good stuff. But before we do that, the young man from all, the man that Josh Hawley calls Dr. D with the news.
How's it going, everybody? Ben, we got an email recently, and I was wondering the same thing. The question was, hey, it was from Samantha, and she asked, what happened to White Lightning? Kind of curious. You stopped calling me White Lightning. I was getting used to it. I had business cards already. Dennis, White Lightning.
You know, I got to bring White Lightning back. I apologize, Samantha. I truly do. I just love the alliteration of Dr. D. And for that matter, what happened to Dr. Doobie? You know?
Yeah. Come on. I mean, ultimately, why aren't you calling me Dennis? But, I mean, like, White Lightning.
Well, you know, I kind of like White Lightning, and I owe Gary Owen White Lightning. Gary Owen, he's a funny guy, man. All right, I'm going to bring back White Lightning, Samantha, and Dr. Doobie. Dennis is so boring.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, as I prepare to read all this news I wrote today. All right, what a shot to the arm there.
Well, no, you know, I mean.
Dennis is boring.
No, you're not boring. That's just calling you Dennis as opposed to Dr. Doobie. For that matter, what happened to Dr. Dog? Oh, wait, you were never Dr. Dog.
And that's a bad nickname, Dr. Dog. Two nouns.
I don't know why I came up with that one. But White Lightning is an excellent nickname, and it always got a big kick out of it. You know, White Lightning, I used to use that one in the studio all the time, Samantha, because you had to see it. Dennis knows what I'm talking about. You had to see it. We have a guest in the studio, and I would go and I'd say, and then whatever the guest's name is, Billy, and as Billy Bob will tell you, back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning, and invariably the guest would start laughing. It's just, I don't know. They thought it was funny. So I really was encouraged by that to continue to call him White Lightning. And since we've left our beloved little studio, and I guess it just slipped my mind, but I'll bring it back.
Well, remember it for the end of the show. Remember it for the end of the show.
All right, I wrote it down. Got it. White Lightning. Hold on. White Lightning. White Lightning. Got it.
Hey there. Dennis here. A lot to get to today, all right? But before we find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois for the fourth and final time this week, and by the way, I hope to God we can move on from the D.C. douchebag demolition derby on Wednesday. But hey, we need to talk about this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews available this weekend at chicagoreader.com and wherever else you download podcasts. Here's this weekend's lineup. On Saturday, it's the long-awaited return of the Illinois political know-it-alls, Jacob Kaplan and Dan Pogoszelski. Ben, why'd you book these fellers? What are you going to talk about?
Politics, 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 politics.
Perfect.
That's all you need to know. The deep dive from three political geeks. We'll be doing the deep dive on politics. And Jacob and I, Jacob's the executive director of the Cook County Democratic Party, we were texting on Tuesday night when Georgia results were coming in. We were breaking down that election. And so we'll probably do some Georgia talk. We'll do some insurrection talk. I obviously haven't done the interview with him yet. Like, are we going to get rid of, I got my phone out here, D, for the updates.
Yeah.
I've learned that lesson from Tuesday. But, excuse me, from Wednesday. But, so we'll probably be talking about the pros and cons of impeachment. All political talk with the know-it-alls who know a lot about politics.
All right, that's going to be Saturday, tomorrow, available by 5 a.m. on to Sunday. Well, we're going to break the fourth wall a little bit here. Ben, watch out. Well, two things. I know you got that phone, and before the show, you were trying to order a pizza. Don't order a pizza while we're doing the show. And second, we had an interview scheduled for a bonus interview, but then all hell broke loose on Wednesday. And we figured, not the best of times to talk about anything except that. So we had to postpone our interview with Leonard Goodman. Yes. That's going to be coming up later on in the month. Do not worry. So we've decided on Sunday to repost a fantastic interview that we had this week with former NBA superstar Al Harrington. Turns out Al Harrington, he's in the legal reefer game, and Ben talked with him about it. And way to go, Ben, by the way, for those who haven't listened to this yet. Ben, way to go. I'm so proud of you. You didn't geek out about basketball.
Yeah, I didn't geek out about basketball at all. I was so geeking out about reefer. It was a really great interview with Al Harrington. Interesting. And the opening of it is it's quite a riff. He talks about how he got into the reefer game, and it has to do with his grandmother. I don't want to give too much of it away, but it's a pretty funny riff. So, I really enjoyed that interview a lot. And Leonard Goodman is a big favorite among our listeners. We had it all set up for him to be interviewed. Absolutely correct. I mean, that was Wednesday. I don't mind breaking the fourth wall because it was so real.
Yeah.
And I remember after the show, because I didn't know, as I've said before, what was really going on because I wasn't watching. I was having an interview with Monroe. And after the show, I called Dennis. And we're talking about it. He goes, "You won't believe this stuff. You got to see this to believe it." And I started watching. I go, "Oh, my God. There's no way I can just pretend that this is not going on while I interview Leonard Goodman." Yeah. So it drops 4 days later. Who knows where this is going to lead? You know what I mean? It was a very scary moment to watch the Capitol be overrun by MAGA lovers, Nazi lovers, Confederate flag wavers, really scary stuff. So I just said, you know what? Let's just take a little break, take a deep breath, and process this and deal with it later. So Leonard was a really good sport, and we're going to bring him back, I guess, next week, and I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about what went down on Wednesday, right, and take it from there. And
because of all that, once again, our interview with Al Harrington kind of seemed to get lost in the shuffle, so we're going to repost that on Sunday. Please go check it out. Great interview, available by 5 a.m. I would say it's also an early candidate for Interview of the Year on the Ben Joravsky Show, our interview with Al Harrington. But on to Monday's Benny J bonus interview, taking a strong lead as Interview of the Year for the Ben Joravsky Show in 2021. 20th Ward Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor was awesome. I don't know how else to describe it. It was a fantastic interview with Jeanette Taylor. Ben, tell everybody a little bit about it.
She brought the A game.
Oh, man, did she ever?
I mean, she just brought the A game. You know, JT brings it usually. I can't even get the words out. Al Harrington was like a great interview, just a conversation, a guy, like explaining how he got to this stage of his life. And, it was kind of a chill interview. I mean, it was all about reefer. And it was like all of us had smoked before we did the interview. Jeanette Taylor was just fired up. And we discussed what went down in Washington with the insurrection. She talked passionately about the double standards, how law enforcement treats black and white protesters. And then we just went to the whole issue of reopening the schools, Lori Lightfoot, and she was just, everything she had to say was powerful. It's just classic Jeanette Taylor, from her heart, just speaks from her heart, doesn't hold back in any way, doesn't, you know how some politicians, they're always spinning it a little bit, you know, and JT doesn't spin, you know, she just tells you how she feels, and she's very honest. She goes, I know there's people already running against me. If they beat me, they beat me, but I'm not coming in, I didn't come into office to soft sell this stuff, and just great. And then at the end, as a bonus, little Stevie Wonder sing along.
Yeah.
As a bonus, as if it wasn't good enough.
That's so funny. Like listeners are like, what the hell? I wasn't expecting that. But and also here's a little inside joke. You'll get it when you go listen to it. Take a seat. In fact, take several seats and download our interview with Jeanette Taylor. She said that quite a bit in the interview. That was the joke.
And the thing about Stevie Wonder and Jeanette Taylor, I always get a kick out of it, is because I love Stevie Wonder. It's probably my favorite performer of all time, favorite musician. And so, like, anytime anything's bad going on in the world, I find myself listening to Stevie Wonder. So I've been listening to him a lot lately. I do the dishes, I'm listening to Stevie Wonder. And I was just so surprised. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But that Jeanette Taylor's considerably younger than me, and she loves him too. So it's something we share. So I go, Jeanette, we can't end this conversation, you know, it's so gloom and doomy, and let's talk Stevie Wonder. And one thing led to another. We were singing songs and everything.
It got crazy. It got real. So real, in fact, I think Jeanette may have called Ben a douchebag. I'm just kidding. That didn't happen. It's this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews at chicagoreader.com or wherever you download podcasts. Check them out. Subscribe. Okay, local news. Let's do it. We begin in Chicago, and we begin with Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Thank God. Science is back, baby.
I forgot that one, D.
Now,
when did she say that?
Some silly commercial about science being back because Trump lost.
Yeah, science being back, but Trump lost. As she throws science out the window and says, get back in those classrooms.
Now, before Ben even thought about waking up, at 9 a.m. this morning, Mayor Lightfoot was at the CPS offices for an update on school openings. Ben, I have 6 audio clips to play from this update. I will play each one, and you tell us what you think, huh? How's that sound?
All right, and this is total improv. Not heard these audio clips at all. I, of course, was not up at 9 a.m. to hear them. I just want to say one thing, D.
What?
I know Lori Lightfoot and her supporters are very proud that she got up so early. I'm just saying one thing. If it's all about getting up early, Troy LaRaviere and SDG were up at 6:30 for their press conference.
And nicely dressed. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that.
When I woke up at the ungodly early hour for me of 10 o'clock, I was like, oh my God, this thing's 4 hours old. Anyway.
So I have 6 audio clips to play from this update.
Okay.
Now remember, the task at hand for the mayor: convince parents, teachers, and school staff that it is in fact safe for students, parents, teachers, and staff to return to the classroom. Even though COVID-19 cases in Illinois just surpassed 1 million, and even though the Chicago Teachers Union are insisting they heed the old mayor, but ironically the same mayor's advice from last year by staying home and saving lives until our nationwide pandemic settles down a bit. Okay, so 6 clips from Mayor Lightfoot's press conference. Let's see if we can get through all of them. Jay Marie on the live stream chat, please stay with us today, okay? Don't tune out. Let's get going here. Here's the first clip I have from the CPS briefing from the mayor.
But it has also created an opportunity for us to come together and find sustainable solutions to the challenges that we face, that we have not faced for decades, but are now front and center, that the pandemic has exposed. One of these challenges has been finding a way to ensure that every single child in our city's heart and soul, has what they need to be able to thrive in a vibrant, safe, and nurturing environment, and do that while advancing their educational rights. And I say rights because that's what I believe. Education is absolutely the great equalizer. I am a testament to that truth. And I want that opportunity for all of our children, regardless of their circumstances, zip code.
So that's how we started it off. Ben, your thoughts?
Well, this is their talking point, and this is, I just don't know whether to laugh or cry. When was that teacher strike over the issue of guaranteeing that nurses be hired into the school, more staffing in the schools? Remember that? Yep. Shut up and go back into the classroom. Remember that? Take your money and go back to work. Don't worry about nurses. Don't worry about librarians. Don't worry about computers. All right? It's just the notion that they're going to address the inequality that's existed for this entire, I said this century. Let's go back to the last century. You're going to entertain it finally now in the middle of a pandemic. Okay, just to take a shot at the teachers union, because teachers are afraid about going into the classroom right now. So suddenly you're going to use the kids of Chicago and the inequities of the city of Chicago as an excuse to force teachers to go back to the classroom. You had plenty of time to deal with that in the 100 years before this, and you're going to have plenty of time to deal with it in the 100 years after that. And I'll believe that this is all about equity and eradicating inequity when I see the dedication shown in future budgets. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I just think, let's think of the first year of Lori Lightfoot's tenure. One, went to court to preserve the Lincoln Yard TIF deal. That's $1.3 billion out the window. That's money that could have gone to obliterate the inequities that plague our system. Two, tell teachers, shut up and go back to the classroom. Don't worry about nurses. That's money that could have gone to obliterate the inequities. And finally, missing in action for the fair tax. Nowhere to be found for the fair tax, which would a big step toward helping schools with the funding. Now, J.B. Pritzker's got to deal with the fallout. He's going to have to raise taxes on everybody because he couldn't get the fair tax passed, and he couldn't get the fair tax passed because many public officials, including our very own Lori Lightfoot, were nowhere to be found in that fight. So I just find it interesting when the leaders of Chicago, I remember Rahm did the same thing. She's just taking a page from Rahm. Rahm did the same thing when he closed the schools. It's all about taking care of inequities and helping poor black kids and poor black communities. We're going to help them by closing their schools. We're going to help them now by sending them in the middle of a pandemic. Get back in that classroom. I don't know. Listen, I hope the pandemic ends soon, D. And then I hope that this commitment that I've seen, not just expressed by Lori Lightfoot, but by her supporters at the Chicago Sun-Times, the Chicago Tribune, and corporate Chicago continues, D. I don't know if we're going to get through these 6 things, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
It's just this stuff fires me up, man.
And you did raise an interesting question. In your opinion, did Lori Lightfoot vote yes for the fair tax? Oh, Phyllis is calling. Wow, what a coincidence. Right when we were talking about it.
Phyllis, look, I have told you a million times. Oh, Phyllis. Phyllis thinks I'm really mean to Lori Lightfoot. I like her. All right, Phyllis, calm down. Phyllis is going to have lunch with John Cannizzaro later in the day from the Fraternal Order of Police and Big Boy and Bailey, the 3 of them. No masks required.
All right, we got more clips. Let's get through it here.
No, I think she voted no. I actually do think she voted no.
Wow.
Yes.
Live stream chat. What do you think? Lori Lightfoot, did she vote yes or no on the fair tax? Okay, more from her CPS briefing this morning.
CPS has worked diligently to provide the best possible remote learning experience and allow our children to continue their studies even in the midst of a pandemic. The fact of the matter is, however, that it is not sustainable, not over the long term, because it does not serve every student equally, especially those students who are younger, who require additional help and supports, or simply don't have access to a sustainable learning environment for whatever their circumstances are. I would urge people of goodwill who care about this issue, particularly other elected officials, to do two things. Number one, to actually physically go into schools in your wards, in your districts. Why is that important? It's important because, one, you need to be present. You need that information to be able to make your own assessments. And you will show support for the workers in these schools who have been there all year, making sure that those buildings are safe and operational. They have made tremendous sacrifices that we need to recognize. And it will give you the opportunity to see firsthand, not through some talking points sent through an email, but to see firsthand what work has been done by people who have made a lot of effort and gone the extra mile to make sure that those buildings that have been open, by the way, since last March, all summer long, all fall long, to make them safe and welcoming for our teachers, our staff, and importantly, for our students.
Wow. By the way, I urge everybody to listen to Jeanette Taylor. It's almost like she has a point-by-point rebuttal to all this stuff. And I'll just let that go. And I'll just say this. Sometimes the mixed messages are just overwhelming. I'm a big user of libraries. I go to libraries all the time, both in Chicago and in Evanston. And there are all kinds of restrictions in libraries right now. So, you know what I mean? Like, they limit the number of people who can go in the library at any time. Before you go in the library, they take your temperature. You got to wear a mask in the library. You can only go one way in the stacks. You can't go two ways when you're in the stacks. You're limited to an hour in the libraries. They moved the chairs so you can't sit in the libraries. You can't hand the book. You can't hold the book. The clerk who checks out the books can't touch the book. So all these restrictions in libraries. But, suddenly when it comes to schools, forget the pandemic. It's safe. And by the way, those workers who were there during the last 6 or so months or however it's been, they didn't do it willingly. It was one of those, get back there now. I mean, those clerks, they were forced back. So I just it's astounding.
It's weird.
You know, it's
And you would think of all people, Governor Pritzker would just step in and go, all right, guys, what the hell are we doing here? You know what I mean? Why hasn't that happened yet?
That is a great question.
Where's old boy at? Where's Pritzker at on this?
And Pritzker and Lori Lightfoot and the strange little dance they do on the pandemic, you know, where she supports them, but then undermines them, and then supports them, and then does her own thing. And he wants to make it seem like they're just happy as can be, and they're totally in alliance with one another, even though behind the scenes they're like cursing each other out. You're right. He's going to stay out of it. He's not going to get involved in this one at all. All right. Well, if the mayor wants to send kids back to schools while telling can't have Thanksgiving dinner with your grandma, but go back to school. Oh, and public officials, yeah, you go to the classrooms too. That'll be great. Because you go wander around the school. I don't know, man. This is madness, utter madness. You know, all of a sudden in the middle of a pandemic, they decide, we're going to deal with inequity. Okay. As soon as the pandemic's over, they're going to stop wanting to deal with inequity, right? I would have loved this dealing with inequity when they were approving the Lincoln Yard TIF. That would have been nice. Or when Mayor Lori Lightfoot sent her lawyers in the court to uphold that. I would have loved the concern for inequity. By the way, remember when they had the whole thing with the computers? Remember that one where she brought in like the rich guys that were going to help out? They always bring in some rich guy. He's so great. Let's thank him. I think it was Kenny G, as I recall. Oh, he's really going to help us out because he cares about us.
Guys, if you follow him close enough, maybe a few dollars will drop out of his pocket.
He sits in the sofa, and then when he leaves, you pick up the sofa. There's all these quarters there. Oh, wow. Thank you, Kenny G. Remember that? And then it turned out like, well, they maybe in 4 years get the Wi-Fi to work. 4 years? But no, get in that classroom. By the way, my friend that I've been talking about still has not heard. She's pregnant, still has not heard. This is our system. Really, we're hard at work, so efficient. Still haven't gotten back. We'll get back to you in a little while. So yeah, I don't know. Very, very weird, the dynamics. You're right, between Pritzker and Lightfoot and the CTU.
I mean, maybe it's more proof that Lightfoot didn't vote for that fair tax. Just saying.
Yeah, you may be right, D. I'm going with the no. You know, I mean, I have to. She certainly didn't push for it. Now, it's true. She did not attend today's breakfast meeting between Phyllis, John Canizera, and Darren Bailey.
Okay, that wasn't that's fun.
A breakfast meeting that exists only in my fantasy. But if MAGA can make stuff up about the election, how come I can't make stuff up about this non-existent breakfast meeting? Just saying.
Oh, well, we have a quote from J.B. Pritzker on the mayor.
The enemy is you.
Okay. Now, we don't know if she didn't vote for the fair tax or not. Quit jumping to conclusions, Governor. Okay, well, let's do one more clip here from the press briefing in the local news here. Hang tight. Here it is.
The other thing I would say is this.
What?
The other thing that's important
Okay.
for you to do is actually see what's happening on remote learning. I have. In some instances, it works quite well, but in many others, it does not.
Is that the clip?
Yeah, that's it.
Remote learning sucks.
Yes, it does.
Oh my God, it sucks. It's like everything else in this freaking pandemic. You know what else sucks? This pandemic.
Yeah.
You know what else sucks? You can't go to your local restaurants and bars. You know what else sucks? I can't see my kids. I can't get in an airplane. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, yeah, remote learning. Dennis was the first to break the news to me. Listen, I've done Zoom meetings, so I realize how bad it would be to have to get a class education out of one. But Dennis was the one who, what was it? When did you go back to Alton and saw your nieces and nephews doing
it was
remote learning?
right there in the beginning of the school year, like September, October-ish, around there. Yeah.
He called me. I remember we were talking on the phone. He goes, "Oh my God, you won't believe how ridiculous this is." I could just imagine. I just absolutely imagine. It's horrible. The whole thing is horrible. So, and by the way, right now I think it's like 70% of parents say they're not going to send their kids back to a classroom. I forget what the exact number is. So they can't force the parents to go back to send their kids back. Lori Lightfoot's not going that far. I will take your car if you don't put your kid in that classroom. No, she's not doing that. They're just saying the teachers have to go back. All right. So that means that parents who don't send their kids are still relying on remote learning. So this thing is so a teacher will be doing remote learning at the same time she does in-class learning. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. I don't know how having your attention divided between in-class and remote is going to work. I don't think they've thought that through. I found myself talking like Barack Obama. Every now and then, it just overcomes me. They haven't thought it through. My good friend Lori Lightfoot. So I don't know. But you know what matters is that a message be sent to the Chicago Teachers Union, and that message is this: we run this city. You work for us. That's the message. That's the message that has to be sent, D, and don't you forget it.
Oh, okay. Well, Okay. Well, a lot more messages from Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot at her press briefing this morning, but we're going to pause it right there. We got 3 more clips to play, and we're going to do that after our interview with Rummana Husain and the Rummana Rundown. We'll save it for the back half. What's so funny?
I'm just doing funny things. I can see myself in this. It's not Zoom, it's Google Meet, and I'm just having fun.
Oh, all right. I'm not looking at the camera here. Okay, now I'm looking. What are you doing? What is it you're doing?
I like this.
Oh.
It's just doing weird stuff. Whatever.
Looked a little dirty. Okay.
All right, it wasn't dirty. Get your mind out of the gutter.
All right. Now, Thursday on the program, we read the thoughts and comments from our elected leaders in Illinois. Comments on when Trump supporters stormed the Capitol on Wednesday. We heard from quite a few people. We heard from Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Face coverings.
We heard from Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. And yes, we even heard from the downstate hog farmer / politician himself, Darren Bailey.
I have absolutely no commentary. There's nothing to be said. What's being broadcast on the airwaves is enough. We have no idea of knowing if, what part these people who have stormed the Capitol, where they stand or who they are. We don't know. But what we do know is our nation is under assault, and it's been there before, and God will rescue us.
Okay, Darren. We even heard from the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police President John Catanzara and his thoughts on what went down. For those who may not know, John Catanzara is of the Donald Trump persuasion, even after all hell broke loose at the Capitol. We read his comments yesterday, and we have more. A lot more. But Ben, in one word, how would you describe what we heard thus far from Catanzara when he said that there was, quote, no arson, there was no burning of anything, there was no looting, there was very little disruption or destruction of property? What were your thoughts again, Ben?
First of all, I think he's correct. There was no looting, no burning. I don't believe there was any arson. So I think that would be accurate. So as for everything else, I think he's wrong. I don't think he would be nearly as tolerant, let's say, if it were protesters daring to desecrate a Columbus statue. You know what I'm saying, D? Now, I don't recall the Columbus statues being really damaged, but just the fact the demonstrators would go near the Columbus statues, like breathe on them. How dare they? He's got an interesting double standard, Johnny Catanzara does, about statues versus the Capitol, which was overcome, forcing congressmen and senators to go into hiding. And by the way, I can't believe he's so indifferent to that mob chasing the Capitol cop, the security guard of the police, as a Capitol policeman, which is truly one of the scarier elements of that. Remember that, D? Chasing the guy up the stairs? It's funny, he's got nothing to say about that. So interesting tolerance for lawlessness from the law and order head of the Fraternal Order of Police.
Well, we have more. It got worse. Thanks to WBEZ, they had an interview with Catanzara. I have the quotes here. Sorry, guys. No Catanzara audio. I know you're all bummed out. I have the quotes, and Ben, you just weigh in here. So the interview went on, and Catanzara continued saying, quote, I don't have any doubt that something shady happened in this election. You're not going to convince me that many people voted for Joe Biden. Never for the rest of my life will you ever convince me of that. But again, it still comes down to proof. Evidence matters. Until that appears, shame on them for what they did. But it was out of frustration. There's no fights. There's no obviously violence in this crowd. They pushed past the security and made their way to the Senate chamber. Did they destroy anything when they were there? No. If the worst crime here is trespassing, so be it. But to call these people treasonous is beyond ridiculous and ignorant. Catanzara said he himself, quote, wouldn't have partaken in it, the Capitol assault, that is, but he kept defending those who did. He said, quote, they're individuals. They get to do what they want. Again, they were voicing frustration. They're entitled to voice their frustration. They clearly have been ignored, and they're still being ignored as if they're lunatics and treasonous now, which is beyond stupid. It's a whole side of the argument, and primarily your profession is at the root of it, Catanzara said, referring to the news media, basically championing Joe Biden the whole time. And we'll end it there.
Sorry, man.
We'll end it there because we've had breaking news since I wrote and prepared all of these quotes.
Oh.
Katera has apologized.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, yeah. I guess he realized that he doesn't work in Hazard County, but in fact, Chicago, and literally everyone that's above his job title vehemently disagrees with him. But first, we need to unpack one more thing before we get to Katera's apology, all right? Like I said, a lot of news went down here today. Ben, we did leave one elected leader out of our list of quotes and responses yesterday, and it's Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx. She's had a bit to say in regards to Wednesday's events, and she managed to throw in a few digs at no one's favorite, John Katera. And the following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Rachel Hinton. The headline reads, Fox sees links between mob action at U.S. Capitol and demonstrations outside her office in 2019. The second-term prosecutor said she was shocked by some of the images from the break-in in the nation's capital, such as one of a man carrying a Confederate flag, but she didn't feel the same shock many felt while watching the news. To understand what happened in the nation's capital this week, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx suggests people look to a rally held outside her office nearly 2 years ago. Ben, help us out. What happened outside her office 2 years ago again?
We talked about we talked about that a lot. We were back in the Sun-Times little studio. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
In our early days of our podcast, and that, of course, was the insurrection in Chicago. Police people, law enforcement, chief of police from outside of Chicago. This all relates to Smollett Gate. Remember, D? Smollett Gate was the greatest threat to law and order. How dare, look, I'm not going to defend Kim Foxx for taking a phone call from someone related to Justice Smollett, but I think we can all agree that was way blown out of proportion. And it's so interesting. One of the people who's saying it was such a threat to law and order is the same John Katera, who doesn't seem to be threatened at all when people overrun the Capitol. Smashing windows. They took down the American flag. They put up a Trump flag, walking around with their Confederate flags in the air, chasing security guards around, with bombs and stuff. Rummana's so fired up about this. So it's just, I've been thinking a lot about this, D. And I know it'll never happen. I mean, I just know it'll never happen. But everybody in this town that was so self-righteous in anger about Smollett Gate, and I'm talking about you, Chicago Tribune editorial board, Johnny Cass, just so self-righteous about that whole thing. And look the other way. Years and years of Donald Trump inciting a mob and just making stuff up. Like, everybody held Kim Foxx to every statement she made, analyzing, dissecting it. How much is accurate? What's inaccurate? This was the most important thing in the world. And Donald Trump, he lies, he makes stuff up all the time. Oh, well, that's just Donald Trump. Why don't they just ignore it? Donald Trump, I still haven't seen that Tribune editorial about Donald Trump's taxes. Talk about out and out lies. I just think, everything that Donald Trump has done since the election, calling up officials in Michigan, calling up officials in Georgia, trying to intimidate them into making stuff up about the election. So Johnny Katera, that's a police officer, believes something. It's like he believes in something because he wants to believe in it. There's no evidence, but I still believe in it. I just can't believe what? My guy lost? But when it came to Kim Foxx, they had to dissect each little individual piece of evidence. So yeah, D, I see a direct correlation, double standard. It's really hard to take seriously the people who criticize the Kim Foxx, criticize Michael Madigan, criticize the Democratic Party, criticize J.B. Pritzker, when they look the other way and never say boo about Donald Trump. Just saying, D.
All right, Kim Foxx did give us her thoughts on what went down Wednesday. She dropped a video of her response on YouTube. I have some of that audio. Like to hear it? Here it go.
I would say that it is almost a privilege to be shocked by what we saw yesterday. Shocked that in the United States there are those who cling to white supremacy so strongly and so fervently that they would engage in the exercise that they did. I'm not shocked because even here in Chicago, I've seen it firsthand. On April 1st, 2019, 4 white nationalist groups gathered with members of an organization I had never heard of at the time called QAnon to attend a march that was organized by the head of the Fraternal Order of Police, that was attended by the current head of the Fraternal Order of Police. And at that event, with members of the Proud Boys and others, racist rhetoric, horrifying things that were said, not just about me, but about Laquan McDonald, about the movement for Black Lives, was a shock to the system. I know firsthand what that hate looked like. I didn't know who QAnon was then. I see the pictures now of John Catanzara posing with them. I was unfamiliar with the Proud Boys until the Sun-Times ran an article about their hateful ways. I couldn't for the life of me understand why white nationalist groups would feel comfortable in the company of those who were protesting a decision by my office. But I saw firsthand here in Cook County, in Chicago, what was possible when those who believe that their institutions are occupied by those who they don't think belong rise up and stand together. This is America.
That's a very powerful statement by her. And I think that I've said this before. Chicago police officers, they're operating in a city that's integrated, to put it mildly. And to elect as their president of their union somebody who stands with the Proud Boys, racist groups, it's like, I don't know. I really feel like another group should be looking in the mirror at this moment. And she's absolutely right. It's scary. I mean, for John Catanzara just to blithely dismiss what went down on Wednesday, just dismiss it. It's just like a bunch of guys having fun. And by the way, as I love to point out, it completely contradicts the narrative that Darren Bailey, the state senator from downstate Illinois, is putting out, which is we don't know who was involved, suggesting that it may not be right-wing Trump supporters. It may not be MAGA people. It may not be the Proud Boys. It may be lefties infiltrating them, trying to make them look bad.
That's why absolutely no commentary. There's nothing to be said.
Oh, Darren.
Yeah. That's why I said, guys, get your little story together. It's either one or the other. It's either just a bunch of good old boys having fun, like John Catanzara. I'm surprised he didn't sing. What's that song, D? Girls just like to have fun. Boys just like to have fun. It's either that or, my God, the left wing is making us look bad. They've infiltrated. Antifa has infiltrated us. So it's one or the other. But it is a disturbing trend. It is a scary thing. Confederate flag, anti-Semitic shirts. It's frightening stuff. And for the head of the Fraternal Order of Police to just blithely dismiss it like it's nothing, like it's a walk in a park, does not make me feel very secure in Chicago.
Okay, like I said here, Catanzara has apologized, so let's read the apology from Catanzara, the president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police. In a statement posted to Facebook Friday, John Catanzara, president of the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 7, said, "As your president, I showed a lapse in judgment during an interview. For that, I am sorry. I brought negative attention to our lodge, the FOP family, and law enforcement in general. I was in no way condoning the violence in D.C. yesterday. My statements were poorly worded. I certainly would never justify any attacks on citizens, democracy, or law enforcement. After seeing more video and the full aftermath, my comments would have been different. Catanzara's, this comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Sam Charles. Catanzara's about-face came after he and the union were the subjects of backlash prompted by comments Catanzara made during an interview with WBEZ on Wednesday. So we got the apology, Ben.
Wow. Thanks for nothing. Comment posted on Facebook. Nah. I mean, it's more like he's sorry that he made the union look bad for what he said. You know, and then the thing, I'm just thinking about it, like, I had to study it more. It's sort of like Lori Lightfoot's apology, now that I think about it, for Anjanette. You remember? I didn't see the video. Remember Anjanette Young when the first thing happened? I didn't see the video. I never heard of it till now, and I will have no further comment. And then, you know, hell breaks loose. She starts apologizing. That's where we're at right now. You know, Catanzara, like what? You commented at such length. You seem to know what was going down. You knew that there was no arson. You know, you had comments about the specific actions that took place. What did you see on Thursday that you hadn't seen on Wednesday that compelled you to issue this statement today? I don't think you saw anything new. I think you just realized that the shit had hit the fan and you had to do something. You had to say something. So why don't you go back on the air? You know, when you were on the air, you were trashing the media and stuff. Like they did something wrong. So why don't you go back on the media? Why don't you go call your guy at WBEZ and go back and say, you know what? I misspoke, or whatever you want to say. Do I just put a little statement on Facebook? I mean, you made your comments for the whole world to hear. You know? Now what? Just a little statement on Facebook? I don't know, D. It's the age of the apology. That's where we're at. People say and do stupid things that profess what they really believe, and then when the shit hits the fan and they're being held accountable, then they figure out, what kind of weasel way can I get out, you know, of what I did? And usually conservatives are like, I'm not apologizing. You know, this is cancel culture. I don't have to apologize.
Yeah, and
I'm just telling it like it is.
And like, dude, why do you live here? Like, that's my whole thing. Like, you must be miserable in this city because, I mean, like, every person I know that supports Trump hates Chicago. You know what I mean?
Well, this whole, again, the Fraternal Order Police had two candidates for president in the last election. And it was Catanzara was victorious, and each one was outdoing the other one how much they supported Trump. And I'm just saying, as a practical matter, they got nothing for it. It's like MAGA. MAGA got nothing for supporting Donald Trump. Donald Trump said, go to Capitol. I'm going with you. I'm going to join. Just imagine Donald Trump waddling down Pennsylvania Avenue from the White House to Capitol. Man, it's not going to do that. He went right back. Probably someone drove him back to the hospital, to the White House, got a Big Mac, and was watching on boob tube the whole thing. While MAGA is, now guys are dumbasses from MAGA are losing their jobs. You know what I mean? They're getting fired because they were so stupid as to do what Donald Trump told them. Michael Cohen warned you guys. Nothing good would happen to you if you went to bed with Donald Trump. He warned you and you didn't listen to him. So, you know, what did we get out of Chicago? Did Donald Trump give us money to help pay our bills? Nope. Did he give us money to help with police pensions? Nope. Did he give us money to hire like more police cars, more equipment? Nope. You got nothing. You just got used by Donald Trump. Now you have this little feeble apology.
And shout out to Kyle on the live stream chat. Boy, his statement really does put a nice end to it. Kyle says, you know, I would rather have an apology from WBEZ for wanting to interview this guy in the first place.
That is correct.
That is so true.
So there it is, guys. Our local news. Like I said, we're going to play the rest of Lori Lightfoot's press conference about the CPS after our interview with Rummana Husain. Also, the latest update on Mary Miller. We're going to be talking about that as well. So don't go anywhere, everybody. It's the Ben Joravsky Show. We are live from my apartment in Ben's attic.
That is correct.
The enemy is you. Face coverage. Face coverage.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana, the Chicago Reader, and the Chicago Federation of Labor. Benny J, take it away.
Every Friday, Rummana Husain, the pride and joy of the Chicago Sun-Times, editor, columnist, joins us to discuss the issues of the day. And generally, Rummana, we have local issues and cultural issues. I'm still going to do a Rummana's recommendation. I cannot allow that to go. But I know you're fired up to talk about what went down on Wednesday. Just the headlines breaking. Even as I sit here, I was just looking at it before you came on. Pelosi threatening impeachment if Trump doesn't immediately resign. Your favorite cabinet member, Betsy DeVos, resigns. Just kidding. She's not really your favorite. Capitol police officer dies from injuries related to Wednesday's insurrection. Fraternal Order Police head John Canizera says, hey, what's the big deal? Just boys want to have fun. Darren Bailey, state senator, Republican state senator, MAGA lover, says he's not even sure it was Trump supporters. It may have been lefties who were infiltrating to make us look bad. Madness everywhere. Rummana Husain, let's just start with your general take on what went down and what's going down.
First of all, I want to say Happy New Year to you and Dennis. I know everybody thought 2020, they wanted to say goodbye to 2020, and 2021 seems to be pretty interesting so far. So I have to say Wednesday's event, as a former Sun-Times co-worker told me, was very triggering for a lot of people of color or people who are Muslim like me and or people who are Muslim like me. Just watching the events, if you don't think white supremacy or white privilege exists, that should have cemented, any doubts you had. And, or just, it was just, as the day went on, I mean, I don't mind telling you my opinion as a person of color and as someone who's Muslim and someone whose community has been targeted for just doing things that people think are suspicious. And aren't. It's just watching this group be able to walk into the Capitol building and take pictures, one guy who was arrested and charged actually just today with sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk. There was one guy who took a podium and ran away with it. I think he put it on the internet to sell. These people were just able to walk inside. I'm not saying they're walking, they kind of pushed their way inside. I know some people would argue that the cops let them in, but, I'm trying to give the police officers the benefit of the doubt and saying that they're outnumbered. But the Capitol Police did refuse extra help that day, that we know. And we know that if this was a Black Lives Matter movement or protest, or a protest involving people of color, say Muslims, who were just out there just to, for some sort of issue that had nothing to do with, the presidency, I can guarantee you there'd be a lot more police presence out there. And if anybody like me or an African American or a Latino or an Asian had run up in groups, I'm saying if the majority of us majority of people look like that, they would have been shot dead. Nobody would have said there's just too many of them to outnumber. I just think the whole spread of events just encapsulated what this country is. And it just, you saw the pictures of the Black men, White House workers who were cleaning up the mess after, and someone said it really captures what America is: Black people cleaning up white people's mess. And then, you have the president of the United States telling these individuals that we love you and you're special. I've never heard of any other group that has protested. And this group, I think we can argue that they weren't really protesting, they were rioting. No other group in this country, when they are out there demonstrating for anything, whether it could be the most peaceful thing in the world, they could be anti-war protesters. No politician tells them they love them. And it's just, I can tell you that a lot of people are also angry. A lot of, these are journalists who we're all talking amongst ourselves, journalists of color. And they're saying that they're just so upset at the way, the individuals who died at this event, who were Trump supporters and had, questionable ideas or that were bordering on racism or racist, you could say. It's like when they die, when they are talked about in the papers, they're basically humanized, which I think is something that should be done. Yeah, of course. But I don't think the same goes for other people. Same goes for other people of color when they die or have some sort of, controversial opinion. So I think a lot of people just feel, I don't know, just not, it's not surprising and it's not shocking, but it's just, I think it's just triggering is the correct word that, that friend and former colleague used. And I know it's a millennial word, but we were laughing because we're using these millennial words. But, I know I can tell you that, we've seen African Americans get shot for just standing outside or just existing. I have Muslim friends who go overseas and, they're doing charity work like Doctors Without Borders sort of stuff, and they happen to be in the middle of I have darker skin, beard, they get stopped, but these white guys with beards can run into the Capitol building and do whatever they want and take selfies, and some of these selfies were taken with cops too. So I don't know, I'm as a person of color, it just really hit home what this country really is. And it's kind of annoying us, when I say us, a lot of people of color, when people say things like, this is not America and this is not who we are. It's usually said by white people. And it is who we are. And this is what we've kind of this is what we've been going towards in a long time. And, our country was founded. There's a lot of things that, a lot of people can argue and say that, the way the country was founded, there's founded in racism, and racism has been part of our country since day one. And it's just been disheartening. And then, then one of the things that got a lot of people upset who have ties in the Middle East, Latin America, or quote unquote third world countries is you hear these talking heads on the news going, oh my God, this doesn't even look like the United States. This looks like someplace in the Middle East, or they
Yeah, Rummana, I think
a lot of the chaos has been caused by our country. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think we lost you for a little while. You were on a great roll, but you went out at some point. So,
Okay.
But now you're back loud and clear.
Oh, okay.
The point where you went out, you were talking about. It was a great riff, by the way. I can talk
about. I know you told me to take my notes on this. I'm like, I don't need notes on this. I've been amped up for the last 2 days.
Yeah, it's true. Before the show, Rummana was expressing some of the same views. I go, I can't keep up with you. You got to write down some talking points. She goes, I don't need talking points, and she proved it again. One of the things you did say before the show, and you didn't say it this time, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. You said, I don't know if this is not a direct quote, but it's essentially, I'm paraphrasing you. There's no accountability for white people, for the behavior, and talk about that.
Well, it's like the accountability. It's like, I'm not saying that no white person ever gets charged with a crime. Clearly, there have been people. We did a story yesterday on how certain people went to this mass riot and lost their jobs, or I don't know if you heard, but Tank Noodle in Uptown, which is a very popular place, a lot of hipsters love that place. Turns out their owners went to the Trump rally and tweeted pictures of themselves going there, and so they got a lot of calls, and a lot of people went on Yelp and started giving them negative reviews. So they're of Vietnamese descent, so that's a different group. But I just feel like white people are held to different standards. When they're held accountable, it's a different type of accountability. When there's someone like me, or, I think a better example is when there's a male that looks like me and they make some sort of joke online about how they want to bomb someplace. I'm not saying it's a joke. I don't think that's something you joke about. But if someone that, went to my mosque and all of a sudden puts on the internet and says, I'm going to bomb this place, it's like, it'll become like the front page news. They're like, say, so-and-so who works at this company said he wanted to bomb this place. And it becomes like the feds will come in. But we saw on December 25th in Nashville, Tennessee, when there was a white guy whose girlfriend or wife told the cops that this guy was making bombs. Nobody did anything. So to see something, say something, only relies on when it looks like people of color. But when it's white people, everybody kind of brushes it off or doesn't take it seriously. And we know that guy in Nashville ended up like blowing himself up. Nobody got injured. But it's just like they're able to do things that other people have to be careful to do. One woman that I retweeted this tweet from this woman that I follow, who's Middle Eastern, and she said that she was in DC the next day flying out of one of the airports, and she said there was a lot of people with MAGA paraphernalia, people who went to the riots, who were at the airport, and she said, I wonder if people who look like that will be taken off of planes, just like people who are wearing hijabs and people who are speaking Arabic and made other people uncomfortable be taken off of planes regularly. And they aren't held accountable. I can say be on a plane and go see someone with a MAGA hat and be like, I'm afraid of them, but they're not going to be taken off a plane. I feel like white anger has always, I think people have just normalized white anger, and it's okay to be angry and white, but it's not okay to be angry and black or angry and brown. And so this just exemplified what white people can get away with. And it's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys too. And I'm not like, I hope people know that when I make fun of white people or say things about white people, I'm not saying all white people. So.
And I always like to I pointed out to you before, white anger train going by as I'm saying this. And I right-wing white anger. And I make a big point out of this because radical lefty white anger is not tolerated in this country either. And I pointed this out just like I said to you when we were talking this morning, and I'm going to make this point again. Rittenhouse killed 2 white radicals in Kenosha. And I think I see more sympathy for the guy who killed him than for the 2 people who got killed. So I just like to point out the difference between when anger, If you're right anger, oh my God, you poor victim, you poor little thing. But if it's lefty radical anger, we're going to lock you up and shut you up. And so there is a distinction.
Argue that I would have to argue that white anger, even on the left, is treated differently than people of color anger on the left. I mean, I know we talked about the NATO 3 guys. I covered that case. These are 3 guys that a lot of people say shouldn't have been charged in the protests. NATO 3, it turned out they were just 3 guys who talked about setting bombs, but they were kind of egged on by undercover police officers. 3 white guys. And a lot of people argue they ended up getting convicted of arson, I believe. And I think one of them got 7 years, which a lot of people would say that he didn't deserve. And yeah, true. But don't you think that if there were brown or blacks, the feds would have came in? I think it would have been totally handled differently. And even when lefty white people get charged or convicted with a crime, white people can still be individuals. They can still walk on and go on with their lives and do white activities, eat oatmeal, play with the hacky sack. You can still do that stuff and not be stopped in the streets. I'm just saying,
No, you're right.
It's true. When the San Bernardino, I think California guy, I think it was a shooting, I believe, in California. Was it the nightclub guy? I forgot. God, there's so many of these. But anyway, not to say that we have very little crime in this country, but he happened to be a Muslim, and I remember reporters going into his house and pointing out that he had a prayer rug. Newsflash: a lot of Muslims have prayer rugs. So when one person who is a Muslim or looks like me does something, it's like everything is suspect. If I start talking Arabic, people think I'm suspicious. So white people can still do what they want to do. If they have a Trump supporting relative, nobody says, oh, why don't you take care of your Trump supporting relative or talk to them? I can tell you in the newsroom, when there has been a terrorist activity miles away from Chicago, overseas, I've had reporters come up to me and tell me that my mosque needs to do something and talk to the young men, or moderate Muslims, quote unquote moderate, I hate that word, need to start talking to our fellow Muslims. So why don't white people ever get held accountable for their crazy white people? I'm just saying, there is a different standard.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. By the way, what moderate Muslims, talk about that?
Yeah, and that's an offensive term to me too. And for years, and this has been upheld by left. After 9/11, the good Muslims are the people who don't want to be Muslim, which is okay. I have friends who have varying. Can you hear me, Ben?
Yeah, I
thought you stopped, so I have friends who are on different ends of the spectrum on religion, which is fine, but there tends to be this. Oh, this is the good Muslim who doesn't really care about, being practicing and, wants to do everything and wants to fit in with the quote unquote American. They're the ones who are held up to a different, oh, these are the good Muslims. And even some of my friends who aren't that practicing, they find it offensive because, they have parents who are more religious than they are. They have friends who are more religious than they are. And they know that's that's not true. And so, there are certain people who are always held up to the standards of, oh, this is a moderate Muslim and this is a regular Muslim. And we like the moderates, which basically means someone who, quote unquote, assimilates and doesn't do the things like what a Muslim does or what a practicing Muslim does. So that's kind of been, that's what we've seen throughout, the last few years. I mean, every person who's Muslim or of Muslim descent will tell you that, and even the ones who aren't as practicing. It's like there are good Muslims, and then there's the Muslims who practice, and they're the crazy ones. So it's like I said, being a black person, and I would never say that my experience is the same as a black person. I mean, a black person can just be standing on the street, minding his own business, and he can get shot. But I guess it's okay for, groups of white people to run inside a building and they were armed. And as we talked about, a lot of them were neo-Nazis. one guy had a shirt that said Camp Auschwitz. And I can tell you, if I had a shirt that said that as a brown person walking down the street, I would get arrested. But I guess it's okay to be a Nazi and come to the Capitol building.
No, it was very scary, very frightening for American Jews as well, what went down on Wednesday. Because, like, you're right, and Camp Auschwitz, and then another shirt that said the 6 million wasn't enough. This is part, this is part of the rhetoric of the far right. And when I hear, like, that Fraternal Order of Police, Johnny Canizera here in the city of Chicago, I dismiss it as just sort of a lark, boys just having fun, just expressing their First Amendment protected right to protest. And he's overlooking just all this evidence of, like, white hatred to people that they think are inferior to them. Like, when you walk around with the Confederate flag, what does that say? A white man with a Confederate flag, what does that say? When you walk around a T-shirt that says 6 million was not enough, what is that saying? And so for anybody just to dismiss it, it is frightening on one level. And so...
Yeah, and you mentioned the head of the police union in Chicago. Could you imagine if there was a black head of the FOP and he said something about how he liked Louis Farrakhan? I'm just saying, an example. He would be out, but this is somehow condoned. It's just, this is the head of the police union in Chicago.
Yeah, by the way, he came up with an apology, which is a perfect segue into another point you have. Apologies and resignations in the aftermath of 5 years of MAGA, in the aftermath of 5 years of Donald Trump. You weren't on the air when Dennis read Canizera's apology, which was a pretty worthless apology, I might say. Mary Miller, the congresswoman from downstate Illinois, who said Hitler is right. It took her like 3 days before she came up with her worthless apology. And so now we have Betsy DeVos resigning. 4 years of going along with Trump, and now she's resigning like 2 weeks late, 2 weeks to go. Your thoughts on all these resignations and apologies?
I think a lot of people would say it's too little too late. I mean, some people are applauding them and praising them for their courage, and I kind of feel like, why? It's kind of like, oh, we have to clap for them and give them a cookie because there was a riot and they realized everything that was happening the last four and a half years of rhetoric. I mean, Betsy DeVos said she couldn't handle the rhetoric anymore. Like less than 2 weeks after Trump is going to resign, so she steps down. Elaine Chao, Mitch McConnell's wife, steps down. I don't know. I have to say that I do think that it's a little too late, too little too late. And I don't know why everybody has to treat them like, wow, and I don't think a lot of people are, but there are some people who are like, applauding them and go, oh, they should be, commended for stepping down and speaking out. Speaking out when? It matters. You should speak out when it matters, not when the guy that you were supporting for the last 4 years is suddenly leaving the White House.
Yeah. By the way, AOC, Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, had an interesting perspective in regards to Betsy DeVos resigning and Elaine Chao resigning. And that's that they were chickening out because they didn't want to have to vote on a 25th Amendment matter. In other words, the way the 25th Amendment works is the vice president convenes a meeting of the cabinet, and cabinet members are asked to vote as to whether the president is medically fit to remain president. It's pretty clear that Donald Trump should no longer be president of the United States. He's lost his freaking mind. And so rather than have to cast that vote, they take the cowardly way out and they resign. So now they won't have to cast a vote, or he'll be left with cabinet members who support him.
That's a good point. That's a good point. My question is, one of our colleagues was saying that when you do invoke the 25th Amendment, it's not like a really quick process, is it? He said it could take like a couple days. So, But I guess it would be just more symbolic if they did something like that.
I don't know. I would love, if you really want to take a stand, if you really want to take a stand against what Donald Trump did Wednesday, inciting insurrection, he told them. I finally got around to watching it, Rummana. I finally watched the Donald Trump speech, or a good chunk of it. And he said, I'm going to go with you. He said that, I'm going to go with you, which is, in retrospect, hilarious, just to think that he was going to waddle down to the White House, to the Congress. But I'm going to go with you. So he told them what they should do. He told them he was with them. He incited that riot. So if you're going to take a stand, you should stay in, and whether it takes 2 days or 3 days, you should do what you have to. If you think he's incited a riot, if you think he led effectively an insurrection that he at the Congress, if you think he attempted to keep Congress from certifying the election, which is clearly what he was trying to do, then you should take the freaking stand. Resigning is like a wimpy way of taking the stand. You follow what I'm saying? You should be there to vote him out.
I do. I agree. I agree with you. I mean, let's see what happens. I mean, I feel like there's like a zillion things happening at once. The last 2 days have just been just one thing after another.
Yeah.
Where, coming out, people are resigning, there's been arrest. There was 2 local people that were arrested in connection with the riots. There was one guy who was a CEO for a company in Schaumburg, and another guy who was a tattoo artist from the burbs. So I know some of our reporters, some of my colleagues have been looking for people who went to the rally, not necessarily got arrested, and if there's any sort of, fallout. And as we've seen, there was with this restaurant in Uptown, and then that one real estate agent did get fired from her real estate company. So I don't know. I don't think this is over yet. Like a lot of people, Trump, I don't think is gone. His followers aren't gone. There's still things that are going to happen. And I know a lot of people were saying that they were surprised by what happened on Wednesday. I don't know. I wasn't really that surprised. You didn't think culmination of all this stuff and all this stuff being said, that these individuals weren't enabled. So it was a culmination, and I really was not surprised. What I was surprised at the level of what they were able to do. I mean, there were some comical things too. I have to tell you, there were some things that made me laugh about this riot. I don't know if you saw, but there were some people holding flags of Georgia, but not the Georgia, but the actual country of the country, Georgia. Yeah. And then I don't know if you saw the people scaling the walls of the Capitol. There were they were scaling the walls. And yesterday I saw this really funny tweet about how the steps were like just 10 feet away, but these guys wanted to show that they could scale the walls. And I've seen some memes that were shared by friends, and it said, white people showing you that walls don't necessarily work. So
walls don't matter. They wanted to show how macho they were. And then the image, I've seen this one. I mean, it's just been so overwhelming, Rummana. And you're right, the story is unfolding as we speak. Nancy Pelosi is still saying she's going to press on with impeachment. I just saw this update. Joe Biden's backing off. He doesn't know. It's like, if they want to impeach him, let Congress impeach him. I don't want to have to deal with this. It's sort of Joe Biden's attitude. But that image, there was an image of a MAGA insurrectionist, a woman. I don't know how old she was, but she was a portly woman, and she was in bad shape, and so walking up those steps was difficult for her. And
down.
But she got him up. Obviously, she got up those steps. I don't think she was scaling the wall. So I think she walked up the steps and then realized what an arduous process this was. And then she had the long descent. And a Capitol police officer was helping her down the steps. Now, I'm all over the map on this one, Rummana.
Oh.
I'm with you 100%. That if that was some Black Lives Matter protester, she would not be.
No, not escorted down the steps.
Not escorted down the steps.
No, there was an elderly white man I'm giving the white guy props, but it was really sad. Actually, in one of these Black Lives Matter protests, I think over the summer, he was kicked in the head.
Buffalo.
Yeah, kicked in the head by cops. So, yeah.
He was knocked down.
Yeah, and that was terrible. I thought he was kicked in the head. Sorry, he was knocked down, but he was an elderly man.
Well, when he hit the ground, that's when they knocked him down, and then when his head banged against the hard ground, that's when blood was shooting out, and he ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
So
I saw that picture. I saw those pictures of the woman being. A lot of people were sharing the pictures of the woman being
escorted
steps, and it was a very telling. Like I said, every little image in this incident, it was just captured. The problems of this country, the white privilege and the white supremacy. It just, everything about it was just all the pictures that were captured. And I have to give a shout out to the photojournalists. I mean, the Sun-Times laid off all its photojournalists, or most of its photojournalists, several years ago. And, they told us that we could all take pictures with our iPhone. This proves to you that, no, we actually need professional photographers, because a lot of those pictures captured what was happening in such a poignant way, in such a telling way. I mean, the pictures are what really, I think, got the attention of a lot of people. And if you didn't have those photojournalists, I think a lot of these images wouldn't have been seen.
Right on. I'm really glad you said that. I agree with you 100% on that one. By the way, and when I say that thing about the cop helping the lady go down the steps, I'm thinking, if you could imagine in a world, I know you can't imagine this, but just like, let's say it was an older black woman at a Black Lives Matter movement and a white cop helped her. People would be like, it was so unimaginable. But it would be viewed as a great thing. And so in some ways, like, hey, maybe, like, you could argue that police restraint saved lives. It was one person killed. Police restraint saved lives. So like in Chicago, when there was the siege at the Columbus statue, where the cops hit the young activist in the head with the baton and shattered her jaw and everything, or broke her teeth. No restraint.
No.
Like, maybe, like, I don't know, if you just treat black people like you treat that elderly white woman. Maybe that's the way to do it. Just apply it across the board.
Exactly. And you know what? Yeah, that's fine. If black people had their hands held down the steps, then I wouldn't, that image of a white woman being held, her hand held down the steps, wouldn't infuriate people, because it shouldn't infuriate people. You should be helping an elderly person go down the stairs. But because it doesn't happen with other people, and it just happens with white people, it makes people angry.
Yeah.
It should make people angry.
Yeah, no, the double standards are just overwhelming. And I'm sure we'll be talking about this. I know we'll be talking about this next week, Rummana. This is unfolding. Just everything is just, like I said, by next week we could have had an impeachment. I don't know. I really believe, I want you to get your thoughts on this. I'm completely all over the map on this, and I admit that. I'm like this on many issues because I see both sides of the argument. I'm not quite sure which one I come down to. I abhor what Donald Trump did so much. I just feel it's inexcusable that he not be punished. That I think about the President of the United States inciting this insurrection in order to keep Congress from rubber stamping. That's what it was. It was a rubber stamp process of a victory that was achieved by Joe Biden. The will of the voters. He was trying to undo the will of the voters. They made up BS arguments to justify their little temper tantrum. They had no evidence whatsoever of any fraud, of anything out of wrong with this election. They lost. And so he throws a temper tantrum, says, disrupt the proceedings. I believe a woman was killed because of that. 4 other people died of emergency matters, and medical matters, in the middle of the ride. 5 people. Now, you know, when somebody steals a car in Chicago and goes on a road rage and gets the cops following him, and somebody gets killed, that person's charged with murder. So you can conceivably charge Donald John Trump with murder.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so I really feel he should be punished. On the other hand, that turns him into a martyr to MAGA. 40% of the population is still following this lunatic, which is the really frightening thing, Rummana.
This goes back to my theory of white people not being held accountable. So all this stuff that he's been doing the last 4 years, could you imagine Barack Obama doing anything of this sort and staying in power? So I know a lot of people say he's going to become a martyr, but does that mean you're not going to hold him accountable? You're just going to let him walk into the sunset and he's going to hang out in Margot, whatever that place is called, for the rest of his life? Like, why is he allowed to walk off into the sunset without any sort of scars? I don't know. I think he needs to be held accountable for some of the deaths. And maybe some of his Republican colleagues and people who stood by him need to be questioned too, as well. He's called these individuals fine people, hasn't he? He's told them they're special. He loves them. So he has a connection to them. So to act like he doesn't have any sort of responsibility is just unfathomable. I don't know. I would think that if this was another president and if this was Barack Obama, he would have been charged. And, I don't know why there's an argument here. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. But I'm like, why is it when it's a white president, we have to sit there and think about not making him a martyr?
Valid point. I know I vote for impeachment, by the way, if I got the opportunity. And I just want to give a shout out to Monroe Anderson, by the way. He comes on every Wednesday on this show. And he's been saying from the get-go that Donald Trump, first of all, will be defeated at the polls, but he will be impeached. And when that didn't happen it seems this year, this was, it was the start of 2020 when he was acquitted in the Senate. Let's just think about that. He did basically the same thing with the Ukrainian president that he did with the Secretary of State of Georgia, try to intimidate them into overturning law to work his way. But when he wasn't impeached, Monroe still said he would be impeached. And by the way, he may be right, is what I'm saying, Rummana. We still got, 2 weeks left? By the time we come on this show, you come on this show next Friday, we could be talking about a Donald Trump impeachment. Just saying, Monroe may be right before it's over.
Oh, I agree. A lot of things could happen. A lot of things have happened since we last talked, so it can happen.
But I think your ultimate point is a very good one, and is that if the man clearly incited a riot, and he should be held accountable for it, and if that just means that 40% of the country is going to be love him more, then it's really a responsibility of the Republican Party to try to bring that 40% into some sort of rational view of the world. Do you agree with me on that point?
Yeah, they love him. What's a little love? What's 99.9% love to 120% love? What difference does it make? They're going to always love him, right? The people who want to love Donald Trump are going to love Donald Trump, whether he's not charged. So, what different? I guess, I don't know. Are they going to take a bullet for him or go to prison for him? I don't know. But who cares if they love him more? The damage is done already.
Yeah. The damage is done indeed. All right. Let's move on. Let's close with Rummana's recommendations. It's you still gotta live, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I gotta say one thing that was pretty funny. I called my mom the day of the riots, and we were just talking back and forth. And then my mom, she's saying a lot of the same points we are. And then all of a sudden she's like, and you know what? None of them had masks on. So.
Yeah, and what's worse, they weren't wearing masks. I'm with your mom 100%. I thought the same thing. And I'm like, are we in the middle of a pandemic? Yeah, but look, it's just one of the many mixed messages. I will say this about MAGA. They don't believe that the pandemic's real, so I can understand that with the mask.
My mom's like, oh, and none of them are wearing masks. What's going on?
Yeah, that's your mom is absolutely correct. But I would say at least the MAGA, they don't believe there's a real pandemic. Lori Lightfoot's trying to open up the schools in the middle of a pandemic, and she supposedly believes that there's a pandemic. Just go back to school right now, okay? Forget the pandemic. Sorry, I didn't mean to go local. Rummana and I agreed that we were going to stay away from local stories today, although there's quite a few interesting ones. Proco Joe Moreno, Rummana's favorite alderman, is in Cook County Jail right now. We'll probably talk about that next week. And Merrick Garland, the pride and joy of Niles West. It's going to be Attorney General. That's some delightful, delicious irony there, Rummana.
Yeah, and he's also from Lincolnwood. He went to the same grade school and junior high that I did. He grew up half a block away from me.
Yep. In Lincolnwood, the number one graduate of Niles West is Rummana Husain, and number 2 is Merrick Garland, in my humble opinion, and number 3, Rashard Mendenhall, the great running back. All right, I could now pretty much run out of Niles West grads that I can quote. Let's close it down with your recommendations. Rummana and I bitterly divided on the subject of Sylvie's Love. I watched it. I wept. I watched it again. I texted all my friends, you gotta watch Sylvie's Love. I've already reached out to Sergio Mims, dear friend of the show, who comes on to talk about movies. He loved it every bit as much as I did. We're gonna do a whole Sylvie's Love. I've been listening to the music. I recommended to Rummana to watch it. Rummana did not agree with me.
No.
All right, let's get another point of view. Go ahead, Rummana.
It's funny because I had another friend, a young man, told me, "Oh, you got to watch Sylvie's Love." He was telling me and my younger sister. And so the lead actor is a former NFL player, and he was telling me, he's like, "Yeah, he did a great job." And I'm like, okay, I'm already skeptical of this because you probably just liked him because he's a former athlete, and he did a great job. I thought the acting was great. But I thought the story kind of lost a little steam in the middle, and then as my husband Mick said, that it devolved into a soap opera. I thought the actors did a good job, and I thought the story was interesting. But we thought a few things, like the guy being a jazz musician, and then all of a sudden like working construction or wherever he went to the factory. We thought that was a little far fetched. We're like, oh, okay, like nobody would hire him. He was supposed to be this great jazz musician. And at the end, I was just like, oh, wait, so did they go to Detroit or New York? That was my question. Mick's like, that's not the point. They're in love. And I thought it was good. I thought the story was good, but I felt like it lost a little steam. So I gave it 2.5 stars. I thought the acting was good.
Oh, it's not so bad. I thought it was, by the way, I have to disagree with the great Mick Dumke. The reality, many jazz musicians and really great jazz musicians. Wes Montgomery, one of the greatest jazz guitarists of all time. He was a welder for years. You can't make a living. That's one of the side stories. I'm going to have another guest come on, Charles Ellison. We're going to take the deep dive about this. But that moment in time that they were depicting in terms of Sylvie's Love, the early 60s, was when rock and roll was...
That's true.
Putting jazz musicians out of business, and a lot of them had to take second jobs, so yeah, like I said, Wes Montgomery is one of the great guitar players of all time. Was a welder.
But they were kind of, I guess they were saying that he was like this really great one. Like Miles Davis wanted to hang out with him, so we just thought it was a little far fetched. But you're probably right. I think one of the things I've seen write-up pieces about how finally there's Black films where Black people take ownership of their music, of jazz, because often it's kind of painted in a, I guess Mo Better Blues had, but that was the blues, I guess, or jazz. I don't know.
It was jazz. It was jazz.
Yeah.
I was a trumpet player.
I have to admit, I'm not a huge jazz fan, so I'm sorry for people who love jazz.
I will. Go ahead, Rummana.
And I understood that point. A lot of people were also, I've seen articles about how this was a movie about Black love. We rarely see that on the screen, so I understand why people like that. Usually this is a movie where seeing Black people not, having confrontations with the police. They're living their lives and just showing that, that aspect of Black life. And I understand that, and I understand why people liked it. I'm just saying, for me, it was a 2.5 star. But then you disagreed with me on Soul, because I thought Soul was really good, and you thought Soul was okay. I thought Soul was cute. So
Yeah, Soul, I'm glad I got to see it. A shout out to Frank. I want to thank you, Frank, for enabling me to see Soul. We'll leave it at that because I don't want the Disney police to come crack down on Frank. But I don't know. Soul is the animated flick by Disney, Pixar, and in which a jazz musician, well, I don't want to give it away, quote unquote, dies. And I'll leave it at that. And then it to me, Rummana, it was just like, it's like when I watch a Marvel movie, you know, and it's like, I'll go, and then about halfway through, I go, this is, whatever's happening on the screen right now is exactly why I don't like Marvel movies. I don't know why I continue to go to them. And it's same thing with Disney movies. If they just told a story of a jazz musician and his, you know, his struggles, like, by the way, that was the central theme of that story. He was a great jazz musician, but he had to teach school because he couldn't make a living. We don't reward jazz musicians in this. We reward rock stars, guys who can't even play the guitar as good as Wes Montgomery, never have to be welders. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's like the underlying theme. But I don't know, they turned a great story about a jazz musician into a Disney flick. And that's what kind of.
I liked it. I thought it was heartwarming, and I thought the point of the story was, you know, I thought it was a good message to us, like, you know, while we're living in this pandemic, about embracing life. So I like that better than, I have to say, I have to like that better than Sylvie's Love. And your friend Mick also liked Coco a lot better. We agreed on this. We both thought it was really good. You didn't like Coco either? That was a great Disney flick.
I've not seen Coco.
See that. Coco was like a really good movie. That's one of my favorite, more recent Disney movies. I liked it. And then my other recommendation, I don't know, Dennis, were you a Karate Kid fan? I know you're younger.
Oh, absolutely. One of my favorite movies. The first one.
Yeah, it was the first one was like, I was like in junior high when the first one came out. I loved it. And I don't know if you're watching Cobra Kai.
No.
But so season 3 of Cobra Kai is now on Netflix, and it started on January 1st. So a lot of Gen Xers were excited and ready to start the new year with Cobra Kai. And I was like, I'm not gonna go through these really quick. I'm going to go through them slowly, but I finished it within 3 days. And it's so cheesy, but if you like Karate Kid, it's great. I've been telling a colleague of mine whose mom passed away, and she told me she was watching the Karate Kid and she saw it 3 times just to kind of make herself feel better. Then I'm like, oh, you know, you should watch Cobra Kai because it's the guys like 30 years later. It's Danny and Johnny 30 years later. And it shows you the perspective of the bully. And I go, kind of change your perception of the movie, but it's great. And the 3rd season has a lot of surprises. You'll see a lot of faces from the first one and the second one, which I also went to the theater to see, but it wasn't as good.
All right, well, I want to watch Cobra Kai, and I urge you to check out Death to 2020. And that's my recommendation for you, which is a Netflix mockumentary, which chronicles the year 2020 and does it with a sense of humor. But as I was telling you before the show, Rummana, it's already outdated. The insurrection at the Capitol, incited by Donald Trump, is beyond anything that's in the 2020, which is really hard to fathom. All right, Rummana, outstanding job as always. Stay safe, stay sound, and we'll talk to you next week, all right?
Okay, it's good seeing you guys again. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. The great Rummana Husain from the Chicago Sun-Times. She's with us every Friday. D, what do you got for me? Any updates?
Rummana, wait. Oh. I forgot to make my recommendation. I was going to recommend that Rummana watch Hee Haw. Boy, what a good show that is.
Hey, who was the guy that loved Hee Haw?
Well, nobody actually loved it, but
he loved it.
I think she'd really like Hee Haw.
Hee Haw. Hee Haw from back in the day.
All right, it's time
for young man.
It's time for the back half. And more about Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot's press briefing this morning. A press briefing all about the city's plan for Chicago schools. The plan: get these teachers and students back into the classroom ASAP. Even at the height of a pandemic where our state just saw its millionth positive test result, and even though the Chicago Teachers Union, well, they just don't want to go back. We played 3 clips earlier, and we have 3 more to go. In the last clip we played, well, we learned the mayor's thoughts on online learning. She's not a fan.
The other thing I would say is this. The other thing that's important for you to do is actually see what's happening on remote learning. I have. In some instances, it works quite well, but in many others, it does not.
Ben, your thoughts on that again?
Just rehearing it. Of course it doesn't work quite well. Of course it's an inadequate substitute for in-class learning. Of course this is a horrific situation that's exacerbating all inequities. But it's a real pandemic. It's not like people are saying, oh, we want to do remote learning because we think it's more effective than in-class learning. The reality is we're in a pandemic. It's dangerous. We're being told 2 conflicting messages. 1, stay at home as much as possible. Do not come in contact with other human beings. Be protective as you possibly can, so we don't spread this horrific disease. And on the other hand, we're being told, get in that classroom and get in there now, or we'll fire you.
Now,
it's just a freaking mixed message from a mayor who I just gotta say this, D. What was it? A month ago was doing that commercial where she was pretending she was crying because she couldn't have Thanksgiving with her loved ones. But shut up and get in that classroom. And I don't care what it does to your loved ones.
Yeah, mixed message gate following us into the new year, I guess. By the way, for those who did not know or did not listen, mixed message gate number 1 in our 10 gates of Illinois Hell countdown.
The 10 gates of Illinois Hell.
Yeah, man.
Holy crap.
Beat out Madigan Gate. How did that happen?
Beat out Madigan Gate. All right, now, before we play the rest of the audio we have here, we do need to read the following from the Chicago Sun-Times, France Bielman, and Nadir Issa on today's press briefing. Chicago Public Schools will move ahead with its plan to reopen classrooms Monday, and staff who are supposed to report to schools but don't show up will not be paid. Mayor Lori Lightfoot and her school's chief said Friday in a final pitch that it's safe for parents to send their children back to school and teachers to go to work. All right.
Well, they will. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's play the rest of the audio. Ben, weigh in with your thoughts. Here we go.
It all boils down to is giving families the option to make the best decision for themselves. Many of whom rely upon their school communities to make sure that their children get a warm meal and a safe place to be so they can fulfill their God-given talents. To deny parents this option is irresponsible and wrong. It just is. I understand the stress that we have all felt during.
All right, we're going to pause it right there. Ben, your thoughts.
All right. First of all, I guess they're not going to fire them now. They're just not going to pay them. Remember, at first they said they were going to be fired. I think this changes.
Yeah, they said they weren't going to be there'll be some punishment. So I guess this is what we're seeing.
All right. So now they're not going to fire them. They're going to not pay them, which, so wait, let me get this straight. If you're doing remote learning, will you be paid for that? Or will they just dock you completely and you work for free if you're doing the remote learning? I'm just asking the questions, okay? And I'm sure if I was asking the questions, Lori Lightfoot would start chiding me and telling me I have my facts wrong. I'm just asking the questions. So it's either all or nothing. Is that it? If you got to go into the classroom, because again, folks, just so you know, not all parents will be sending their child back to the classroom. So some kids will still be dependent on remote learning. And the way the system is set up is that teachers are supposed to be teaching the class that are kids who are in front of them and the kids who are in their homes remotely. So if you're not going to show up, so what is it? Is it going to be like all or nothing? If you just do the remote but don't go in the classroom, do you get like half? Or do you get nothing and you just volunteering your work?
Do you get a gift card? What do you get?
I mean, a gift card to Starbucks, but don't go in. Don't sit, okay?
No congregating.
Yeah, don't congregate. Remember that? You can walk along the lake. You can run. Don't look at the sky. Remember that? Remember when you weren't even allowed to go to the lakefront? Couldn't go outdoors? But now, oh yeah, go indoors. Go into some old freaking building with the worst ventilation in the world, where they may or may not have cleaned things up. We don't know. You know? They may or may not have purifiers. Whatever. But don't stand at the lakefront and look at the sky. Can't do that. That's dangerous. So again, this whole issue, they're trying to make this. Rob did the same thing. And he closed the 50 schools. They made it like a civil rights issue. Our children have the right to go to good schools. And if these empty schools are not good schools, we have to consolidate them so they have more services. So think about all the great learning you could have done. If a school's population falls, that's more individual attention for a student. You could have flipped it. You could have said, you know what? We're going to keep these schools open and we're going to have, just think about what Lori Lightfoot was saying, so they can reach their God-given talent. You could have had early morning classes. You could have had late morning classes. You could have had parenting centers. You could have had individualized attention for the kids. You could have really made a strong effort to make sure that the kids who are the poor kids, low-income kids who are lagging behind their wealthier peers because they don't have the advantages may catch up. Didn't want to do that. Just shove them into a classroom. Make sure that the classrooms are still overcrowded in the name of helping them. And now we're doing the same thing. Put them in a class. Oh, suddenly they care so much. The powers that be in Chicago care so much about the poorest kids in Chicago. They're going to make them go back to school in the middle of a pandemic. As I said before, pandemic won't last forever. If you really care about dismantling the inequities that work so much against the poor kids of Chicago, you got plenty of time to do it when the pandemic's over. But I don't believe it. I've never seen the powers that be in the city of Chicago give a damn about the poor kids in the city of Chicago. They certainly got, every time when it comes to raising taxes to help the schools, it's like such a big deal. You know, it's almost like they apologize for it. And then they siphon off money at the top for the TIFs. So I would believe Mayor Lori Lightfoot and the powers that be in the city of Chicago, that they cared about the poor kids of the city. If they were to say, you know what? We're dismantling that Lincoln Yard TIF. We're dismantling the South Loop TIF because those kids need that money. I would believe it. But I think they only care about the poor kids of Chicago when it comes to sticking it to the Chicago Teachers Union and Stacey Davis Gates.
Yeah, and I think this Lightfoot is long gone.
Apologies to all the Aries. But if you stay at home now, maybe you can celebrate with the Geminis later.
Stay home, save life.
Yeah, stay at home. No, those days are gone, days. Now, I hear these, like the health experts she drags out. Like, well, you know, the pandemic's getting a little better. You know, it's really safe in these schools. Okay, all right.
Oh,
What?
And Jim on the live stream chat, this one's for you.
Just stay home. Save lives.
Yeah, unless you're a Chicago public school teacher, then get out of your home.
All right, 2 more clips to play here, and I believe she addresses the CTU in these clips. Here we go.
We've made a commitment to engaging with the CTU leadership. And this CPS team has manifested that commitment every single day since June. CPS's good faith efforts to engage with the CTU leadership, 51 formal meetings and counting, not to mention all the informal conversations that have taken place. Our folks have come to the table with good faith. Our folks have come to the table wishing to forge a partnership and collaboration in the best interest of our children. We have to have partnership in that. We need to have a going forward with substantive collaborative engagement focused first and foremost on our children and their education and their safety. We are here. We are at the table. We stand ready to move forward together towards a solution. The fact of the matter remains that remote learning, as I've said, just isn't sustainable for everyone. It works fine for some, but increasingly we're seeing, not just here in Chicago, but nationally, it's just not working for others.
And finally.
So let me end by saying this. To our teachers and our staff, we look forward to seeing you on Monday.
Oh,
I want you to know that I have absolutely heard you. Absolutely heard you. I know you are anxious. I know many of you are scared. And I understand that. And we will continue to work hard to make sure that we are accommodating as many people as possible. I also know that you care deeply about our children. You wouldn't be in this profession if you didn't.
And there it was, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot's address on Chicago public schools moving forward.
You know, why is it when she did that final little bit to the teachers, she sounded like she freaking hated them? You remember? I mean, we've listened to Lori Lightfoot in many different aspects of Lori Lightfoot's personality and character. There's like the joking Lori Lightfoot, you know what I mean, with the guitar, jing. There was the Lori Lightfoot who was emoting to show how she really, like she was pretending to be talking to, I don't know who she was pretending to be talking about on that phone call she had about Thanksgiving, you know. And then there's the Lori Lightfoot talking to the teachers. I really care about you. Just like one step away from the, I will take your car, Lori Lightfoot. All right, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Chicago Teachers Union made a strategic blunder, in my humble opinion, in the 2019 mayoral election. They not only endorsed Tony Preckwinkle over Lori Lightfoot, they really endorsed Tony Preckwinkle over Lori Lightfoot. And in doing so, they exaggerated the virtues of Tony Preckwinkle and utterly demonized Lori Lightfoot. I thought that was a bad move when they did it. I said it at the time. I still say it, even though I love Chicago Teachers Union and SDG. But Lori Lightfoot has taken it to such an extreme. And it's so obvious that she just has this venomous attitude towards Stacey Davis Gates and the Chicago Teachers Union. And I really think it doesn't do her well, and it doesn't do our city well. And we've seen this side of Lori Lightfoot before. If you're on her bad side, it like repulses her. Byron Sixer Lopez stands up at a city council meeting. I don't know if he was standing up, it was a virtual meeting, but he asserts at a city council meeting his objections to a police settlement and raises the issue of Anjanette Young, and she starts lecturing him. You don't know the facts. You don't know what you're talking about. Raymond Lopez of the 15th Ward questions her about police strategies during the unrest, the rioting that followed George Floyd's murder, and she tells him he's 100% full of shit. Anytime somebody disagrees with him, anytime someone dares to disagree with her, she questions their credibility, she questions their integrity, she questions whether they know what they're talking about. Even in the case of Anjanette Young, when she didn't know what she was talking about. And I keep saying this. When the NBA wanted to bring back basketball, there was a very personal engagement between the leaders of the NBA and the leaders of the players' union. And so the comparable thing would be for Lori Lightfoot herself to reach out to Stacey Davis Gates or Jesse Sharkey, whichever one she wants to. If she can't take Stacey Davis Gates for whatever reason, then Jesse. And say, what can we do to work together? What can we do to alleviate the concerns that you have? But this BS about meetings, about the one thing that I agree with John Cannizzaro, the Fraternal Order of Police, or any police officer in Chicago when it comes to negotiations, is the city plays hardball in negotiations. When they sit down at a table and it's lawyers for CPS or bureaucrats for CPS on one side and leaders of the Chicago Teachers Union or the Fraternal Order of Police or whatever on the other side, it's an adversarial relationship. It's like a hardball negotiation. And Lori Lightfoot showed that with the Anjanette Young matter. She plays hardball. She's a corporate lawyer. And that's the game she learned. And that's her background. So it's like 50 meetings? 50 meetings where you didn't listen to them? 50 meetings where you played hardball? We never reached out on a personal level? I'm sorry, Lori Lightfoot has all kinds of meetings with all kinds of Hillary Clinton comes to town. She's ready to meet with Hillary Clinton. Right, D? She had a fight with Bobby Rush but over the election. Bobby Rush said far worse things about Lori Lightfoot than Stacey Davis Gates ever did. But she made up with him with Popcorn Gate. So when it's, you know, she's happy to meet with others. Mayor Pete, she loves meeting with Mayor Pete. That's her guy. I hope it works to Chicago's advantage now he's the transportation secretary. So they've treated the Chicago Teachers Union like they're an adversarial force. And then she tries to turn around at the last minute and say, oh, but I really love teachers. Teachers see through that. By the way, and I'll repeat what I said. I keep talking about this over and over again. I got an old friend, a Chicago teacher. She's pregnant right now. She still has not heard from CPS whether they will grant her an exemption or whether they will force her to go to the classroom. So, you know, you would think this would be one of the, if they've paid attention to every single detail, you think this would be one example of it, but no. So I don't know, D. I got to tell you, there's some kind of political game going on here with this determination to open up the schools while we're in a pandemic. And just what was today? What did the paper say? More people died in Illinois. And any other, didn't I see that headline in today's papers? Did I miss that, D, or did I get that right? In today's papers, it said more people died today than any other day. Did I get that right? We're going to open up the schools.
I'm not sure.
Oh, great.
I don't want to back up that claim if it's wrong.
Illinois COVID cases top 1 million. That's the headline I saw in today's paper. And Illinois coronavirus cases tally eclipsed 1 million as state public health officials announced 8,757 more people have contracted COVID-19. A total of 1 million infections have been diagnosed across the state. That's an average about 3,360 new cases a day. So maybe I didn't see that headline. We'll just take that out of there. We'll just edit that out of the podcast.
Yeah. Usually I'd just be like, yeah, that's right. But that was a pretty big one. I didn't want to just.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see it.
Hey, the mayor's on the phone. Shh, be quiet.
This is the right thing to do, even though it's a hard thing to do. Of course, I'll give your love to Amy and Viv and Hank. All right, love you, Mom. We'll talk on Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
Applause for Cy. Okay. See, that's Mayor Lightfoot really trying to show how much she cares about something. I don't quite feel that same. Now, I admit it. She probably would care more about someone in her family, than she would about a teacher that she doesn't even know. But I don't know. Could do a better job. For some reason, D, with that thing at the end where she was like supposedly pouring out her heartfelt feelings about Chicago teachers, it seemed more closer to that. We'll take your car.
Wait, she's still on the phone. Be quiet. Shh.
I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
I think you're 100% full of shit, is what I think. If you think
no offense, well, fuck you then. Who are you to tell me I'm full of shit?
She's got more communication with Raymond Lopez than she has with Stacey Davis Gates. Now, admittedly, it's not, the most peaceful and friendly communication. No, I will never talk to Stacey Davis Gates, ever.
And by the way, did I hear Phyllis a minute ago?
Springfield politicians, they promise they won't tax retirement income if their constitutional amendment passes.
Change your phone number, dude.
Dude, I got to get rid of the phone. And you got to understand, the phone didn't even, I can't even explain this. It's like, I don't even know how to turn it off. It's just like, it rings. The phone itself doesn't work. So I don't know why we even have the phone. That's a whole other issue. It's a cry for help, D.
Well, luckily we've made a bit about it, so we're fine when it happens.
What a week! What a week, man!
What a week, and let's close it down. That's our show, everybody. Remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews, like this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews, like the one on Monday with Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor. Oh my God, it's fire! Go download it. And so much more content. Over 800 episodes of the Ben Joravsky Show for you to check out. ChicagoReader.com, wherever you download podcasts. If you download, check us out on the live stream sometime. We're on YouTube, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time at the Chicago Reader YouTube channel. Hang out on the live stream chat and say hey to all the people that we reference on the program. Kathy, Jim, Michael Girardi, Brianna, Frank, Steven. I don't know where Steven's been, but Dragon Slayer 19 was on today, by the way, Ben. He says hello.
And I would say hello right back.
Oh, there you go. He says hello right back, Dragon Slayer 19. And follow us online at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can always send us an email, BennyJShow at gmail.com. That's our email. And you can call us. 708-658-4788. The number again, 708-658-4788. Have a fantastic weekend, and I think I'm done talking.
All right, I want to thank Rummana for saying outstanding job as she does every Friday, and coming on this show. And of course, the man with the legend, the pride and joy of all. Without whom the show be possible. And just want to say, as Lori Lightfoot, Stacey Davis Gates, and Samantha will tell you, back home in Alton, Illinois, they call him White Lightning.
White Lightning.
That's his Kid Flash imitation. That sounds a lot like his Mitch McConnell imitation. Give yourself a raise, take another petty cash. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Face coverage. Face coverage.
I want an answer. I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
I think you're 100% full of shit, is what I think. If you think we
No offense, fuck you then.
Face coverage. Face coverage. Face coverage. Face